Hi guys, I'm Emily and welcome to my channel. Today I invite you to cook with me a chicken pot pie in an Instant Pot. Obviously you can use any other pot you have, like to make chicken, and then later on you will need a pan to saute a couple of things together, but I'm using Instant Pot for less mass, and it's just, for me, I just wanted to show some of my friends and anyone who's interested how to use like Instant Pot for all the new users, that it's a very versatile thing. So you start out by placing 2 chicken breasts inside the Instant Pot, and I obviously add some aromatics to it because I like when the chicken and broth is well seasoned. So the first thing you need to do is to create the chicken broth. So you place 2 chicken breasts and any aromatics you have. I placed some ginger, celery. I had some frozen parsley leftovers, so like stems from parsley, so I added those. I added some carrots. You can add some bay leaves, parsnips, whatever you have. I didn't have that on hand. Obviously it's quarantine, so you can't add everything you would wish for, but whatever scraps you have, that's a good way to go. Then add 2 cups of water to create the steam in the Instant Pot, and also for later to use it as a chicken broth in your chicken pot pie. So here's how you do it. You close the lid, make sure the vent is sealed, because that's how you create the steam. Then what you need to do is press manual and place it for 10 minutes. I showed how to do it, and make sure the pressure is on high, and then just let it be. In 10 minutes you'll have wonderful chicken breasts, and obviously the chicken broth. So next, while the chicken was cooking, I peeled the onion and chopped it up, because obviously you can do any variations you want with it. I just like the classic to have some onions in my chicken pot pie, because I like aromatics. Plus onions have lots of vitamins, and right now vitamins is something that every one of us needs. So I'm all about using as many veggies as I can in any dish I'm making, and obviously onion is one of those really important veggies we need. It adds flavor, it adds wonderful smell, and healthiness. So first of all, you need to chop it up in small pieces. Obviously you don't have to chop it that small, because it almost dissolves by the time it's cooked. So you can have like a little bit bigger slices. You can dice it even smaller than I did. It's whatever you prefer. So yeah. After that, you need to wash and peel and chop a couple of carrots, because carrots are a classic thing to have in the chicken pot pie. Usually it's usually in the chicken pot pie, it's usually the carrots, onions, and peas that are important ingredients. You can obviously add any veggies you like, but this is what I had on hand, and also I had some celery. So later on I added some celery as well. I chopped up some celery and added it to the all the veggies while I was sauteing them. The next thing you need is pastry. That's what I used. You can use any frozen dough you'd like. You can use the pie crust, or even pizza crust can be worked into this recipe. I like the texture of puff pastry on top of my chicken pot pie, so that's what I used. I took it out and defrosted it for like 30 minutes. I think I should have taken it out way earlier, but I forgot to take out the puff pastry earlier, so I did it when I remembered it. So here is how you stop the Instant Pot. You press off on it because otherwise it will keep warm and will take forever to release the pressure. But I usually just open up the vent and cover it with a towel because I hate the steam coming out on my kitchen cabinet. So this is kind of how I prevent the steam going in all the directions. But once the steam is released, you can open easily the Instant Pot, because if the pressure is not released, you will not be able to open it, obviously. So you can see the chicken is looking like, the broth looks amazing. It looks very colorful, and it smells amazing because of the added ginger and all those other things. So whenever you're cooking anything and you have some scraps, put them in the freezer, put them in the fridge in a Ziploc bag. I usually have like a Ziploc bag in my fridge that I just keep adding veggies to, and once it's full I either pop it in the freezer, or I put it I end up using it before I need to actually store it in the freezer. And right now is the time that everyone needs to use every scrap they have, even for like things like making broth. Even though I have to discard all these veggies, like these scraps, they did their wonderful job of being used in this recipe to make an amazing chicken stock. So the next thing I need to do is to remove those scrap vegetables from the chicken broth and to get rid of them. So I need to strain the broth and keep the liquid for the rest of the recipe. So make sure to not discard the chicken. So you start by removing the chicken breast out of the Instant Pot, and then you strain the rest of the broth and keep the liquid from it in a separate bowl. And then you need to wash the Instant Pot and then the inside of the Instant Pot, and use the chicken from it to have it shredded out. I used 2 forks to do it because it was only 2 chicken breasts, but a good tip in case you have way more chicken and you feel like having some more dirty dishes, you can use a handheld mixer to shred your chicken. It's done in like 2 seconds. I was just too lazy to go look for where my mixer is, and so I just used 2 forks to shred it out in small pieces. But you're welcome to use the hand mixer if this is something you don't like to do much, because some people find it gross to For the next step, we need the Instant Pot insert. So make sure your Instant Pot is washed, well, rinsed. You don't need to perfectly wash it, but rinse it out, the inside of it, and place it back inside the Instant Pot, and then add some olive oil to it. Oh, put it in saute mode, so just press the saute button on it and it will automatically start warming up. Make sure that the heat on the Instant Pot is set to a high heat. Then it's gonna be like, basically you're gonna use it as a saute pan, which is amazing because less dirty dishes, and you don't need to watch out for the heat and be worried if the food is going to get burned. So place a couple of tablespoons of olive oil inside the Instant Pot, then add some onions to it and some butter. I like to add at this stage the butter because it softens up the onions, and later on they will like become almost nothing, which is really great because you don't really feel the texture of boiled or like cooked onions in your chicken pot pie later. So this is the time I add butter to it. It's just softens them up. So after you add butter, let it melt, let the onions keep cooking until like they're almost translucent. Then you have to add your chopped carrots to them and let them cook for a couple more minutes, because just like to let the carrots get a little bit softer, but not too much, because personally, I hate overcooked carrots. I still like a little bit of crunch to them. So a little bit, couple of minutes of sauteing the carrots, and then add some garlic to it. So I used garlic press, but you can just chop them up and mince them really well with your knife. Then add some celery to it, because celery adds extra texture, and it adds some wonderful smell to your chicken pot pie later. Then add quarter of a cup of flour to it. I'm showing two different methods of how to thicken up your broth to become a wonderful sauce. You can add butter, and then you can add some flour, and then you can add some chicken stock and just keep mixing it till you thicken it up, and then add some milk. Or you can use the second method, because I didn't like how like my sauce wasn't thick enough, so I added some equal proportions of butter, softened butter with flour. So basically, if you use, I use 2 spoons of butter and 2 spoons of flour. I mix them up in a separate pot and in a separate plate, and then I added it to my sauce, like you will see in a few seconds. That helps you prevent the clumps from the flour to be in your sauce, and it makes the sauce thicken up in to become more less liquid texture. So see the butter together with the flour, equal proportions, 2 spoons and 2 spoons, and see how fast the sauce becomes very thick. Here I tasted it. I obviously thought it needed more salt, so I added salt, and then I decided to add the rest of that butter and flour mixture, and see the sauce becomes thick like in 1 second. Then after this was done, I let it boil for a couple more seconds, or a couple more minutes maybe, and then I added the shredded chicken to it and mixed it all up, and added the frozen green peas to it. I added them frozen. I turned off the heat, obviously, so this sauce wouldn't become even thicker. I added some thyme to it, because thyme gives amazing smell to it, and parsley. Added some color to it. Some extra green is always good. I didn't have fresh parsley, unfortunately, so I added some dried parsley, but we all work with what we have. I added some shredded chicken, the one I shredded before. I made sure the heat of the Instant Pot is off, and the frozen peas. That's all you need for the inside of the pie. Then you need to find your dish in which you're going to bake the pie. And I just used a pie dish. I had this pie dish I bought it from Target for $5, I think, years ago. And I made a couple of pies in it previously, but I've never made a chicken pot pie in this specific dish, but it turned out great. So I'm placing my mixture inside of the pie dish and spreading it out. I made a little bit more than the pie dish could fit. I actually could have fit all of it in. I didn't feel like having it spill out, so I kept a little bit and put it later on in a smaller dish and made like a separate little pie for my daughter. But that's all you need to do, is to put the mixture inside the pie dish and then cover it with the dough. The dough I'm using is the puff pastry, the frozen one. I had it frozen forever in the freezer. I wanted to get rid of it, so that's what I'm using. I'm not creating my own from scratch. Maybe at some point I'll make a video of making crust from scratch, but this time this is what I had. And unfortunately I didn't take it out early enough, and I didn't feel like waiting for like 10 more minutes for it to defrost even more. So what I did is I placed this almost frozen puff pastry on top of my pie and let it a little bit soften up from the heat of the mixture I put inside of it. So the filling of the pie is basically defrosting my crust. But I made it work. It's not perfect, but I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for something edible. I'm looking for a wonderful end result. So this is what I had. I just kept on stretching it out until it covered the whole dish, and it ripped in a couple of places, but honestly it doesn't matter because eventually you're going to eat it anyway. It's home cooking, it's not for the restaurants, so I didn't care how it looked too much, so I just like baked it until I made it. So yeah. So after you finish spreading out your crust on your pie, you want to make a couple of insertions with the knife. You need those cuts to let the steam from the inside to escape, otherwise the pie will get ripped. I mean, my crust was already kind of looking not great, had a couple of rips around it, but honestly it doesn't matter. So, but I had some crust left over from cutting it from around the edges, so I just placed that crust on top of the rips that were unintentional, and I had a couple of rips, well, cuts that were intentional. After that, make sure to cover it with some olive oil. Any other oil will work. Butter can work. Egg yolk, egg white can work, whatever you have on hand. I just wanted to finish up this olive oil bottle, so I used olive oil for this purpose. After that's done, put it on for 100 degrees in the oven for like 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Like, you'll see, like, once the crust is done, the pie is done. So I hope you enjoyed my video. Please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what kind of videos you would like to see in the future. Thank you so much again. Bye!